Hi, Instas. How you doing? I'm back. I'm on my knees for this one, kind of Scorpio style on my knees. Happy Sunday Funday. As I record this, we are Sunday Fundaying. It is still Libra season, and we're still very much in this new moon solar eclipse in Libra energy. Let me know in the comments how you are feeling. How is things going? And are you enjoying Libra season thus far? So we really are like with Scorpio season, which by the way is from around October 24th to November 23rd, depending on where you are in the world. We are really starting then the first shadow season of the second half of the year, astrological year. And so now we are getting to start to kick into the unwinding of the astrological year, the unwinding of our intentions, and kind of like a sort of spiritual calm down is felt more right now. And I want to just share on the screen, let's hope it works, the kind of astrological picture here of this Scorpio season. So this is kind of the tone. And let me just highlight with some, what color shall we choose? Shall we choose red? I want to choose red today. Okay, so this is where I'm circling now. This is Scorpio, and we can see the sun at 0 degrees on October 24th around will have entered Scorpio, thus officially kicking off Scorpio season, right? But we can also see that Mars is already like 8 degrees by this time into Scorpio season. But one thing I also really love about this is that we have the sun making an exact trine to the moon in Pisces. So we have a water trine aspect. And also the moon is conjunct exactly this retrograding Pisces, Saturn in Pisces. And also we have the sun kind of knocking on the door of Scorpio, coming into Mars's house, and Mercury's there as well. And yes, they're both now under the beams of the sun, but it's kind of like this. It's like, ha, I can see you, or ha, I like what you did there. I like what you're doing there. Like something is seen, something is very known, something is very clear, as it always is with the sun. The sun is the brightest fucking planet. It cannot be denied. It cannot be denied. It is a constant. But here it's like with all this Pisces energy and the moon and the sun like working together with this magical trine, and Saturn here as well, the master of feigned appearances in retrograde and in Pisces. It's kind of like the wool is pulled off our eyes or somebody's eyes. But like the wolf is not being told on, or we're not crying wolf. It's kind of like a lot of us, I feel like this year are really mastering during Libra season, and we've really learned how to keep stum and shut up and just kind of see and observe people. And it's so interesting as a tone for this particular Scorpio season. And I think, well, also we have a rabbit year, right? I've been talking about this for a long time, since like the spring, the overarching rabbit year energy. And this reminds me also of a date I went on once with a guy, and he was telling me how like the rabbits, the literal like rabbits in Europe, kind of look quite crazy, and they have more of a bizarre, outgoing temperament. Whereas the rabbits in Korea are much more small and round and like humble. And it just got me thinking of like this kind of crazy versus humble sort of dichotomy that Scorpio season very often brings about, but in relation to the theme of survival and how blending in or being under the covers or like peering through the crack spiritually is a mechanism for survival, laying low. And I really feel like with Mars in this Scorpio season in particular this year, it's going to be not your ordinary Scorpio season. It's going to be extra. It's going to be sexy. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be intense. It's going to be eventful, like full, adventurous. It's going to be deeply delving into things. This is a Scorpio season where Mars is roosting in the house where you have Scorpio. So this house is where Scorpio always rules. Mars always rules for you in your chart, but now he's like home as well. So it's extra special in terms of wherever you have Scorpio in your birth chart. I have Scorpio in the 5th house, the house of things like casual dating, romance, love, children. So let me know where you have Scorpio. But yeah, it's like also with this Scorpio season, I get like, don't try to act like you don't know. And also don't try to act like people couldn't possibly know that you know they know, if that rings a bell. This is stuff like cock blocking and also stuff like relationship suicide in Scorpio season, things like death drive. This is diving deep under the radar or laying low in some sense. This is like going incognito, extra. But let's talk a little bit about the very general Scorpio season stuff, which is like every Scorpio season every year, no matter what, because every Scorpio season the sun is there at least. So we always have things like illuminating the need to recoil in Scorpio season. This is a basic. Also stuff like walking in the shade or the shadows. And this is kind of like Björk's song, like all so quiet, shh, shh, and so peaceful until that is Sagittarius season, by the way. But this is a kind of also quiet season where things get a bit more eerie and like still. Scorpio is very much like a frozen lake or a very, very placid watery surface where it almost looks like ice. It's liquid, but it almost looks like plastic or ice. And this is also like coming home at night or coming home as it gets dark, making sure in many cases for many of us that we are looking after ourselves at night during Scorpio season. This is stuff like facing brutal truths in every Scorpio season, facing realities, whether that's internally or we're being told by somebody in some scathing Scorpionic way, the truth. This is like killing an inner demon or two as well. Almost every Scorpio season, everyone gets to do that or feel the desire to do that. And this is also survival. And this is also like sunglasses or shades. Like, you ever met those people who are always wearing sunglasses or sunshades no matter what the weather is? Like, they don't want to show you their eyes. They don't want to be seen in some sense. That's also Scorpio season, very generally. Also, we're going to get more like spider spirit, of course. I mean, I think since late Virgo season, a lot of people will have been feeling spider spirit stirring. This is also things like the black cat spirit. And when we get to the end of Scorpio season, it's going to be more of the eagle spirit, because the eagle is kind of the Scorpio Sagittarius border. And some brilliant artists to crack open again or listen to or explore, or of course Björk and Frank Ocean Justin Bieber, who is a Scorpio rising, Doja Cat, who will continue to prevail for another season at least, also a Scorpio rising. And yeah, this is like a spooky season as well. This is things like superstitions and paranoia for some people, overthinking, or rather like overdelving. This is destructive behaviors, and this is the scare factor. People who like to watch videos, for example, of people being scared. Sometimes it gets very, very sinister. People liking to watch very brutal or disturbing things. But more generally, it's kind of like people enjoying the thrill of feelings, or enjoying feelings that are kind of stirring or shocking. This is also a cocooning type of experience. This is chrysalis energy. So it's really when we get that little tap to be wrapping ourselves up more spiritually, and protecting ourselves more spiritually. And this is also things like highness and elation. So many times Scorpio people can just get very intense and impulsive about a particular thing, obsessive about a particular hobby. And we can all be feeling this in Scorpio season, especially with Mars here. Especially, you will notice like Scorpios have been recently, maybe even the whole year until now, have been quite quiet. But now, as Mars is already in Scorpio, they're coming out of the woodwork. They're socializing more, or they're interacting more, or you're just seeing them more in the public eye. This is also going to be things like plots and vengeance, stuff like character assassination. This is very typical Scorpio season stuff, but with Mars here, it's more poignant, I think, this year. We'll have things like furiously drilling something, like it's a great time to study something, like with a vengeance. It's a great time for training, training martial arts or any kind of training. Again, possibly like furiously doing so. This is also like gym bunnies. We're in a rabbit year as well, so much more of the gym bunny vibes, gym bunnies galore. And like also like an intense desire to win something, like a medal or titles or money, like a prize. That can be that undying kind of drive. Again, we've got obsessions here, we've got compulsions as well, and I would beware of like jumping into or back into addictions. So people who have those tendencies or who have struggled with addiction, to beware in Scorpio season of like, yeah, dipping back into that, or just in general, like going overboard. I have this image of like the fiery fool. I think we will be more willing in Scorpio season to jump into something. It's kind of like an early Sagittarius season with Mars here. We have also things like stealing secretly or subtle appropriation. We have hoodwinking, swiping, sniping. We've got pickpocketing. And I'd beware of like the honey lady, I call her. This reminds me of one time I worked in a restaurant, and I once dealt with this lady, and from the word go, she just felt so weird to me, and I couldn't pinpoint why, but every sentence she said, she finished it with honey, honey, and I mean, obviously she was barking up the wrong tree, but she was just one of those like overly endearing types, and it was kind of creepy. And literally every time I spoke to her, she would punctuate her sentence with honey. And this is the magic that some people do. This is magic. And it turned out that she was a what do they call it? A dine and dasher. Yeah, she just like disappeared somehow and didn't pay for her quite expensive bill. So there's this way in Scorpio season where we can be, especially with Mars sextiling Venus, charmed and stolen from, or charmed and kind of having, as I mentioned at the beginning, that wool really pulled over the eyes. So there's that. The honey lady, and we have Lilith in Virgo as well, participating in this sextile to Mars. So a lot of people will not really care about doing this kind of action, especially those who have not learned anything during Libra season. They're going to be the ones who don't care about stealing, or don't care about damaging someone's business, or don't care about the fact that they're sleeping with someone's boyfriend who's in a close relationship. Like, all this kind of stuff will really come out, and it will be clear who hasn't done any learning in Libra season, or how we haven't learned in Libra season. Scorpio season will kind of expose that, because Scorpio is a very exposing energy. It really undresses things and makes things naked. And as I always have been talking about on my channel from like the beginning of my channel and my astrology studies, like Libra season is the red carpet season, and then Scorpio season is like when the celebrity is alone in the dressing room under like candlelight and has to face themselves or look at their reflection. It's kind of like, what was it all worth? Like, what did you actually do? Like, who the feck actually are you? Like, that's Scorpio season. Okay. Other things we're going to have in Scorpio season potentially are catfishing, scamming, especially once Mercury joins Scorpio, or rather once the sun sort of starts to get closer to Mercury. But I just think anyway, in general, lost my train of thought. Let me get some water. Thirsty work, this is. So I think with Mercury here, that's what I want to say. Basically, there's going to be even more likelihood of these sorts of scams, and people you meet, also people like who you thought were someone but it wasn't that person. Like, that kind of thing will happen as well. Or like meeting really bizarre, strange people in the street. Have you ever had those kinds of encounters when someone just comes up to you randomly and says the most bizarre thing, and before you even have time to like process it or ask them to repeat what they said, they're like already gone? That's a very shadow season thing. This is manipulators as well, and saboteurs, hackers, all that kind of stuff. And like intense and deeply emotional battles as well. This is stuff like races and challenges, showing your burning passion for something, or how you or showing just how far you can go and will go for some cause. This is like shaving all your hair off for cancer, or running a marathon, or growing a mustache. All this kind of stuff people do during Scorpio season, because it is a very deeply emotional season. People really act very impulsively and intensely on the things they care about that have affected them emotionally, or that have affected them in terms of their fears, and very private things as well. It all kind of comes out in this interestingly intense and also competitive way. This is like charity events and crisis appeals, fundraising, like, sponsor me, sponsor my community, that kind of thing. It's much less of like the glitz and the glam, and more about the graft with Scorpio season, as we start to slowly depart Libra, and as the Libra energies slowly dissipate, it becomes more about the graft and kind of really burrowing in, or digging our heels into something. And this is kind of like Eight of Pentacles. Again, this is kind of like spider, patient energy in Scorpio season. Other things is like collecting debts and favors from people, because we have Mars here in Scorpios. This is, if you're a very tactical person, it's like calling in that person who owes you a favor finally. um, or getting something that you're owed finally. A lot of people associate this kind of stuff with Pluto, but it's actually a very Martian thing, calling in your favors and your debts, um, and doing it in a seemingly Plutonian way, but actually just doing it in a Mars and Scorpio way, which is that flying under the radar. Um, but anyway, this is also stuff like mazes and uh, playing games like Cluedo and like escape rooms. And Scorpio heavy people have this very scathing sense of humor as well. Scorpio sextiles Capricorn, so there's a lot of that dark humor that's easily tapped into for Scorpios. Um, you might find certain TikTokers or comedians coming to the fore now for you, or that you're revisiting them in some sense, or recalling them, because they're just funny in the way that they can really dig up uh, quite poignant, prickly truths and present them in quite funny ways, and quite raw ways. Scorpio is a very raw type of season. Again, it's very exposed. It's like the icy glaciers of Iceland. It's massively vast and unforgiving and harsh and fucking freezing, um, but also incredibly beautiful and like awe-inspiring. Also, we can have things like surgery and digging, and like this is a Scorpio season is very much like you rip up your floorboards or the carpets, or you're like stripping the walls off. People could just get very active in terms of other things like repurposing, or upcycling. I think Scorpio, this is something that's not often talked about, but Scorpio is a very kind of like recycling type of energy and repurposing type of energy, regenerative type of energy. Um, and we can have also things like angry cleaning, or like cleansing, or sterilizing, or detoxing, or wanting to flush your body and like plunging the toilets or the pipes. But again, with Scorpio season, especially with Mars here, I would beware of going too far. Like, you don't need to gut the whole room or the whole house. Like, maybe it's not that deep or bad. Um, but we can really, especially in a rabbit year, also get into like quite the kink, and push it too far. But I think just to kind of finish then, as my room is getting very pitch black, um, I think this is like people surviving ordeals as well. Like, you might, in Scorpio season, just come to realize how you really have survived something. I was looking in my diary today, around this new moon in Libra, and exactly 1 year ago, on the full moon in Aries, 1 year ago, I had broken up with my boyfriend, and it was just the things that I wrote in that entry. It was quite like, just quite illuminating and quite interesting to see like how in this year now it has changed me, and what I've learned, and how certain parts of me will never accept certain behaviors or situations. And yeah, I think a lot of us will be in Scorpio season kind of realizing how and where we've survived something. And also, this is like people coming out on top in some sense. This is like, there will be underdogs kind of winning or getting more attention. There will be like, with the sun in Scorpio, this is always like an affirmation transit, but there'll be like an affirmation of inner strength or your inner power. This is like Christina Aguilera and that song she had, Fighter. She's a Sagittarius. But if you look at her music video, for example, for that song, Fighter, and the lyrics as well, and the vocals. It's very like eagle spirit or moth spirit. Like, you know, moths come out. I think they come out of like a chrysalis as well, right? Like butterflies. But anyway, archetypically speaking, um, it's very much that Scorpio Sagittarius border. So maybe even some people will really be like that Christina Aguilera fighter video, where they're thanking their abusive father for making them who they are today. Like that kind of thing can really be relevant for some people in Scorpio season. And it's like a revitalizing as well of our determination more generally. And this is like rejoicing in retribution, especially if we have not, during Libra season or earlier, we've not wished bad on people who did bad to us. We just kind of tried our very best to get on with it and let what must be. If we have done that, we might well find very early in Scorpio season, or even now on this new moon in Libra, that there is this rejoicing in a kind of retribution. And I think for a lot of people, this will be finding the permission as well, or the energy to move on from things or people or situations, or kind of like to move forward, or to pursue like a dying wish that we have. And especially those wishes that we've been trying to get granted, or those things we've been trying to, the flames we've been trying to rekindle for like 6 months now. We can really get like this energy boost. And I think especially those who have burning desires, or goals they really care about, or desires they really want to fulfill, Scorpio season is going to be the season to quite secretly and quietly and subversively get a grip of and conquer that. So that will be that, my loves. I hope you have a lovely Scorpio season and enjoy the rest of your Libra season. And I will see you in the next one. Oh my God, it's so dark. I love you. Bye bye.